Hello and warm regards from Next IS team. Welcome to another episode of Daily News Analysis. Today is 7th November and let's see the topics that we are going to discuss today. The first topic is our national song Vande Mataram. We are celebrating the 150th anniversary of Vande Mataram, and in this context we are going to see how this song evolved, what role it has played in the national freedom movement, and what has been the status after independence. The second topic we are having is the difference between right and freedom to vote. The third topic we are having is about the global nuclear race, because USA has said that it is going to restart the nuclear test, because it is saying that Russia, China, North Korea are still doing nuclear tests, and in this context it is not going to be left behind. Then the fourth topic is about the one Adhiniyam, and there are certain rules that have come out in this context. And the last topic we are having is about the universal basic income, what role it can play in India, how it is important for us, and what are the challenges and limitations in implementing the universal basic income. So let's start with the first topic, that is Vande Mataram. The first topic we are having is Vande Mataram. Vande Mataram, our national song. Now, why we are discussing this? We are discussing this because on 7th November, that is today, we are celebrating the 150th anniversary of Vande Mataram. Why 150th anniversary on 7th November itself? Because on the 7th November, it was first published in 1875. Now, what is the relevance here? The relevance is that this is important from GS paper 1, that is in the modern history. And it will be having prominent importance from the prelims point of view. However, contribution of the composer of Vande Mataram can be asked. So that can also become a part of mains. So this topic becomes relevant from this significant event, personalities and issues regarding the modern Indian history. Now, about the news. The news is that we are celebrating the 150th anniversary on 7th November 2025 because it was first published in Banga Darshan on 7th November 1875. Vande Mataram was composed by Bankim Chandra Chatterjee, and the meaning is that Mother, I bow to thee. That means माँ मैं आपके सामने नमन करता हूँ, आपके सामने झुकता हूँ. That is the meaning of Vande Mataram. Now, Vande Mataram initially was published in this Banga Darshan. Now, in 1882, it was included in Anand Math. That is a novel written by Bankim Chandra Chatterjee. And in 1896, Vande Mataram was first sung by Ravindranath Tagore at the Indian National Congress session held in Calcutta. So it was first published in Banga Darshan. It was included in a novel in Anand Math, a very important novel, you should be knowing about it. And lastly, Ravindranath Tagore sung the Vande Mataram in 1896 at the Calcutta session, and after that Vande Mataram became one of the important and prominent slogans of our freedom struggle. Now you have to tell me that this Indian National Congress session of 1896 that held in Calcutta, who was the president and what were the important outcomes of this particular session. Now let's move back to the topic. Now Vande Mataram, as we know, is one of the important slogans of Indian national freedom struggle. Now this has become a symbol of unity, sacrifice and devotion, and it has motivated our whole freedom struggle. Let's go to the composer. The composer was Bankim Chandra Chatterjee. He was born in Kantpala near Nai Ghati in Bengal. He was educated in Hooghly College and Presidency College of Kolkata, and he has been an Indian Civil Services officer. So he has also served Indian Civil Services under British rule. Then he was the first graduate, he was one of the first graduates of the University of Calcutta in 1858. Now, if we talk about his literary contributions, so he has written a number of novels and books, which include Durgesh Nandini, Anand Math, a very important one, which has inspired the Sannyasi rebellion, which was inspired by the Sannyasi rebellion. Then Kapal Kundal, Devi Chaudhrani, important one, Krishna Kantarville and Rajni. So these are the important literary contributions of Bankim Chandra Chatterjee. He was a pioneer of the modern Bengali literature, and his literature involved romanticism, realism and patriotism. So he has inspired the freedom struggle. Next is nationalist thoughts. He composed Vande Mataram in Anand Math, and it was later adopted as the national song of India. Then Anand Math portrayed the sannyasi rebellion against British rule and symbolized the motherhood as goddess. His writing infused the nationalist consciousness during the late 19th century. The next is religious and philosophical views of Bankim Chandra Chatterjee. So he blended the Hindu spiritualist revival and the moral strength. His essays like Dharm Tattva, Krishna Charitra emphasized ethical and cultural regeneration and promoted cultural nationalism rooted in the Indian tradition. His legacy involves, he is known as Sahitya Samrat, that is Emperor of Literature in Bengal. So he is one of the important literary figures in Bengal. He inspired later freedom fighters and thinkers like Arvind Ghosh and Bipin Chandra Pal. His vision linked literary revival with the national awakening, making him a key figure in the Indian cultural renaissance. Now, these points become important if a question is asked regarding the contributions of Bankim Chandra Chatterjee in the national freedom struggle, because questions have been asked previously also by the UPSC regarding the contributions of personalities. Even the personalities topic is mentioned in the UPSC syllabus. So, from that point of view, knowing about Bankim Chandra Chatterjee becomes important for us. Now, next is Vande Mataram. Origin we have already discussed. It was composed by Bankim Chandra Chatterjee, and first of all it was published in Bangladesh, then it was inculcated in Anand Math in 1882. Now it symbolized Mother India, blending the spiritual devotion with the patriotic nationalism. Now next thing is that how it rose as a national song. So first of all, Vande Mataram was used as a rallying cry. That means people were shouting Vande Mataram during the Swadeshi and the anti-partition movement of 1905. Anti-partition movement here means the partition of Bengal. So during that movement, during the Swadeshi movement, the Vande Mataram became one of the prominent rally cry or prominent slogan during that particular movement. It represented unity, sacrifice and defiance against the British rule. Then formation of the movement, Vande Mataram in 1905, a Vande Mataram Sampradaya was founded in the North Calcutta, and it organized Prabhat Peris through which it collected the funds. So one organization was named upon this particular slogan. Then press also. Vande Mataram daily newspaper was also published by Bipin Chandra Pal. So through the inspiration of Vande Mataram daily newspaper was also published, and the publisher was Bipin Chandra Pal, and after some time Arvind Ghosh also joined it. It became a powerful nationalist newspaper promoting Swadeshi ideas and self-rule. The next thing is political mobilization. How politically this Vande Mataram has motivated us. So 7th August 1905, first political use of the slogan Vande Mataram at the Calcutta Town Hall was used during the boycott of the British good. In 1906, defiance at the Barisal conference despite the official ban. So Vande Mataram becomes so prominent slogan that it was banned by the Britishers, and due to that ban, this was more used by the public during the protest. So a protest held at Barisal is now in Bangladesh, and during that the Vande Mataram was used prominently. Then from 1907 to 1908, it was chanted all across the India, Lahore, Rawalpindi, Tuticorin, Bombay. So wherever the protests were happening, Vande Mataram was the prominent symbol, slogan there. Then British have tried to repress it. British have put ban upon this particular slogan. Now one more thing is there. 1905, who was the Governor General of India? You have to tell me this. In basics, you have studied about it. Then coming back to the topic, it has become a symbol of unity because people across all caste, creed, religion have shared patriotic identity through this particular slogan. It embodied the idea of Mother India as a divine and indivisible. Then legacy, it became the anthem of resurgent nationalism and freedom struggle. It inspired generations to the spirit of sacrifice, courage and devotion, because Vande Mataram itself means that I bow to you mother. मैं आपके सामने अपना शीश झुकाता हूँ मातृभूमि. It contributes to symbolize India's cultural pride and national unity. Then impact on the revolutions that were happening abroad. For example, in 1907, Madam Bikaji Kama spread a flag which was named Vande Mataram on it in Germany in the Stuttgart. So in Stuttgart, when Madam Bikaji Kama unfurled the flag of India, on that flag Vande Mataram was written. Then in 1909, Madan Lal Dhingra's last words were Vande Mataram when he was being executed in Britain. Then in 1909, a magazine was published with the name Vande Mataram from Geneva. So there was a newspaper that was published in India by Bipin Chandra Pal, and a magazine was also being published with the name of Vande Mataram from Geneva. So you should not be confused that magazine था इंडिया में भी publish हो रहा था और outside भी publish हो रहा था. तो इंडिया में whatever was published was the newspaper, and in Geneva it was the magazine that was being published by the name of Vande Mataram. Then in 1912, Gopal Krish Gokhale was welcomed in South Africa with this slogan itself. So Vande Mataram was not the slogan that was prominent in India. It was prominent in outside India also. The Indian diaspora, wherever it was living, wherever it was fighting against the British rule, was using this slogan. The next is, because this slogan has played a very important role, so the Constituent Assembly in 1940-50 unanimously adopted Jan Gan Man and Vande Mataram as the national symbol. Jan Gan Man is our national anthem and Vande Mataram is our national song. In this context, the President of India at that time, Dr. Rajendra Prasad, on 24th January 1950 declared Vande Mataram, which played a historic part in the struggle of Indian freedom, shall be honored equally with Jan Gan Man. Thus, Vande Mataram was given equal status as the national song alongside the Jan Gan Man, that is the national anthem. So Vande Mataram is national song and Jan Gan Man is national anthem. Now lastly, Vande Mataram remains the timeless expression of India's unity and national pride. It transformed from literature to a movement because it was a literary component. It was composed. It was a literary song actually. So from being a song, it turned into a movement inspiring generations of patriots. So this particular statement that Vande Mataram turned from literature to a movement, discuss. So in that you can discuss what role it has played. There were newspapers that were brought out with this name, how this slogan was used during the freedom struggle in India as well as outside India. So that part can be discussed here. The 150th commemoration reaffirms the enduring spirit of sacrifice, unity and cultural awareness. Now based upon the discussion, you have to attempt this MCQ and you have to put your answers in the comment box. And let's move to the next topic. The second topic we are having is right to vote versus freedom of voting. What is the difference between them? One is a right, one is freedom of voting. Now, this is a PIL filed. The petition filed says that declaring a candidate elected without polling is actually violative of the freedom of voting. In this context, the center has given an affidavit clearing that right to vote is different from freedom of voting. So the relevance is GS paper 2, salient features of the Representation of Peoples Act. Now let's move to the topic. The topic is regarding a PIL filed by Vidhi Center for Legal Policy and ADR. It contends that declaring a candidate elected without polling violates citizens' freedom of expression by denying them the right to register dissent through nota option. So what does this thus mean? इसका मतलब ये है कि मान लो at one polling in a constituency only one person has filed a nomination for the elections and there is no other person who has filed the nomination. So it simply means that in a constituency only one nomination has come for the election. In that case, the section 53(2) of RPA Act 1951 says that in any case if only one candidate is contesting from a particular constituency, then that particular candidate will be considered as elected one by the returning officer without any election. So वहाँ पे कोई इलेक्शन नहीं होगा, डायरेक्टली उस कैंडिडेट को ही विनर डिक्लेयर कर दिया जाएगा. So in this context, the Vidhi Center for Legal Policy and ADR has filed a petition saying that जब भी इलेक्शन होता है, the people have a choice to express themselves. whether they want that person or whether they do not want that person. अगर एक ही कैंडिडेट है तो कोई और कैंडिडेट है ही नहीं, सो इन दैट केस द इलेक्शन कमीशन और द रूल्स आर वेरी मच राइट कि जब एक ही कैंडिडेट है तो वही चुना जा सकता और तो कोई इलेक्ट हो ही नहीं सकता. सो इन दैट केस दे आर राइट. But this particular petition says that people also have a right under nota. They have a nota option also. They can avail this option. Now, when the elections are not happening, they are not able to express this nota option. So, in this context, they have said that the election should be conducted so that the people are able to express themselves through the nota option if they do not want anyone to be elected. So in this context, this particular case is there. Now in this case, center has said or center has informed the Supreme Court that the right to vote and freedom of voting are two different things. Right to vote is a statutory right, and the particular provision is through section 62 of the RPA Act of 1951. So the Representation of People's Act 1951 under section 62 provides the right to vote. So right to vote is a statutory right, whereas freedom of voting is a fundamental right that comes under fundamental right of free expression under article 19(1)(a) of the Constitution, that is right to express oneself, right to speech and expression under article 19(1)(a). So what is the difference between them? The difference is that right to vote आपको तब मिलेगा जब आप legally through this act eligible हो. For example, the eligible age to right to vote is 18 years. So a 17-year person cannot vote. Whereas freedom of voting is a fundamental right. Freedom of voting तब आएगा जब election होंगे. तो during an election, a person cannot be influenced to vote in a particular manner. He is free to express himself. If he want to vote for party A, party B, or he want to opt for nota. So that is his expression. So upon his expression, while the elections are being conducted, there should be no or any kind of pressure. A person should be free to vote in any manner. That is freedom of voting. So that is the difference this particular affidavit of center has claimed. Now the backdrop of the case is that the section 53(2) of the RP Act of 1951 and Rule 11 with Form 21 and 21B of the Conduct of Election Rules 1961 says that in any case, if in a constituency there is no other candidate or only one nomination has been filed, then the returning officer is going to fill the Form 21B in which that particular nomination or the particular candidate will be declared as the elected one. So that is the case here. So in that case, the returning officer shall declare the candidate elected without a poll. So there will be no election. Next is center stand. Center says that the right to vote is a statutory right and it is limited by the RPA Act of 1951. The freedom of voting is an expression of the choice, part of Article 19(1)(a). In that, it has cited the Supreme Court's judgment of PUCL versus Union of India of 2003 case. It says, right to vote is a statutory, but act of voting is an expression of opinion. So it has differentiated. Right to vote is a statutory right, but act of voting is an expression of opinion. And act of voting actually amounts for the freedom of voting. जब act of voting होगी तभी आपको freedom of voting मिलेगा. So for that, the election should be there. If the election is not there, then this particular act of voting is not being done, and that's why the freedom of voting cannot be availed at that particular time. So freedom of voting exists only when a poll is conducted. अगर poll होगा ही नहीं, तो freedom of voting is not being conducted. Now, what the center has said in this clarification, it has said that a poll can only be conducted when more than one candidates are contesting a constituency. अगर वहां पे सिर्फ एक ही कैंडिडेट है तो कैसे वहां पे हम पोल करवा सकते हैं. Secondly, it is saying nota. Nota option is not a candidate. You cannot choose nota as a candidate under section 79B of the RPA Act. That means an election can only be conducted when there are at least 2 candidates. अगर सिर्फ एक ही कैंडिडेट है तो उसी को हम इलेक्टेड मान के चलेंगे. And secondly, the argument that the voters are not able to opt for the nota. In that context, the center has said that nota is not a candidate recognized under section 79B of the RPA Act. So nota is merely an expression, not a contesting entity. Election cannot be left inconclusive on the account of nota votes. Nota vote के हिसाब से we cannot conclude that elections are not conclusive. We have to elect someone, and that this has been recognized by Supreme Court also. Supreme Court has itself said कि nota will be an option for expression, but in any case, if nota votes are more than the votes polled for any candidate, then there will be no result. That particular candidate having the maximum votes will be declared as the elected one. So in that case, nota does not affect the election outcomes. So election outcomes के ऊपर there will be no impact of nota. That's why the this section 53 is very much valid. Now next is Election Commission's position. What it is saying? It is saying that until and unless the center the parliament through an act amends the RPA Act and includes nota in section 69, then only we can consider for a election. जब तक नोटा को कैंडिडेट नहीं माना जाएगा, we cannot conduct an election according to the rules. Secondly, it is said there are very less cases in which this particular option of Form 21B, that simply means when there is only one candidate from a particular constituency, this has been used. For example, only 9 cases out of 20 general elections conducted between 1951 to 2024. Then in last 54 years, only 6 times this particular form or particular provision has been used, where a candidate has been directly declared as elected without any poll. Only one uncontested election in last 34 years since 1991. So the provision has been invoked very scarcely, and that has happened because as the democracy is deepening, there are multiple candidates who are filing nominations to get elected. So the chances of use of this particular provision are very less. So there is no need to go for any kind of reforms in this particular area. Now the broader implication is that voting is a legal right exercised under specific statutory provision, that is RPA Act. Freedom of voting includes nota option arise only within the context of an electoral poll. Only when actual poll happens, then only the freedom of voting including nota option arises. The case raises a broader debate on whether uncontested election limit the citizens' right to dissent in a democracy. That is the one question that is being asked here. Ki whenever the elections are uncontested, how they affect the voters' rights. Now you are in a position to attempt this MCQ. Attempt this MCQ and post your answers in the comment box, and we move to the third topic. Now the third topic we are having is global nuclear race. The backdrop is very simple because we know USA under President Donald Trump has been announcing, has been doing things, has been taking actions which have become a point of concern for the whole world. And in this context, in this step or in this series, one more announcement has come out. The announcement is that the US would resume the nuclear weapon testing. Relevance, GS paper 2, effect of policies and politics on the developed and developing countries on India's interest. Now how? Now recently, US President Donald Trump was to meet with the Chinese President Xi Jinping in Busan. Before the meeting, President announced that US is going to resume the nuclear testing again. And what is the reason given by him? Again an absurd reason. He says that already countries like China, Russia, North Korea and Pakistan are conducting nuclear tests. And to maintain the global order, to ensure global peace, to ensure global security, US is now going to resume the nuclear weapon testing. Now what are going to be the implications? The implications are going to be grave because it is again going to start the nuclear arm race. It can again lead us to the Cold War era. It is a grave threat to the whole world because nuclear weapons can actually destroy the whole earth. So in this context, this particular development is very dangerous to the whole world's security. Now, global context, why Donald Trump has said? Because Russia has recently announced the successful test of two missiles. One is torpedo, one is missile. Burevestnik, a nuclear-powered cruise missile, and Poseidon, an undersea torpedo. They have been successfully tested. These are not nuclear detonations, but they can carry nuclear warheads. So now they have one more capability. And under this capability, under this threat of capability, President Trump has given this particular statement. Now, North Korea, if we talk about North Korea is a recent country which has conducted these tests. It has conducted the test in 2017 itself. Russia, China and US have maintained a moratorium on the nuclear test since 1990s, though they have been continued their test regarding the delivery system. Delivery system means missile ho gaya, torpedoes ho gaya, which are capable of carrying the nuclear warhead and putting them wherever they want or attacking through them. So there have been the testing of the delivery system, not the nuclear weapons. Now we talk about the historical background. Historical background says that Soviet Union since 1990s have stopped any kind of nuclear test. And it was conducted before the dissolution of USSR. So after the dissolution of the USSR, there have been no tests conducted by Russia. United States, 1992, it was the last test. A large full-scale nuclear detonation test was conducted by USA. Then China, 1996, last test before signing the Comprehensive Test Ban Treaty. Then France, in 1996, it conducted a final series of tests in South Pacific before joining the CTBT. Then United Kingdom, 1991, it conducted a test jointly with USA in Nevada test site. Then India, 1998, under Operation Shakti at Pokhran, it conducted a test. Then Pakistan, in response to India's test, it has conducted 6 tests. Then North Korea, 2017, it claimed successful test of thermonuclear hydrogen bomb. So North Korea, as claimed by itself, is the only country possessing a thermonuclear hydrogen bomb that is more devastating than the nuclear bombs. Now, we are having a comprehensive test ban treaty. This was adopted in 1996. It bans all kind of nuclear test, but it has not entered into force because two major countries, USA and China, have not ratified it. So they have signed but not ratified it. What is the difference between them? Signing means that at UN they have signed the treaty that they are going to adopt it. But for adoption of any treaty, that treaty has to be passed by the particular parliament of that country. So US and Chinese parliament have not passed this particular treaty. So this treaty has not been ratified. That's why this CTBT has not come into force. Russia has ratified the CTBT, but as it has seen that USA and China has not ratified it, so it de-ratified in 2023. Now let's talk about the nuclear arsenal. Russia is having the maximum number of arsenal, whereas USA is at the second point. Now USA has conducted the maximum amount of nuclear test. Then if we talk about India, only 160 warheads India has with respect to nuclear capabilities, and Pakistan is having 170. And our closest neighbor, that is China, it is having more than 1000 nuclear warheads and it is still expanding. Next is current US position. So currently US position is that US will not resume the full-scale nuclear explosion but may conduct subcritical tests using conventional explosives without triggering the nuclear chain reaction. Subcritical test, ये क्या होते हैं? These are not banned under CTBT, but these tests use conventional explosive to compress the small amount of fissile materials without causing a nuclear chain reaction or explosion. So subcritical का मतलब क्या है कि they will not allow the nuclear bomb to go critical ताकि chain reaction ना बने उसके अंदर. So the purpose is to check the safety, reliability and performance of the nuclear weapon without conducting the actual nuclear explosion. So what they are going to do is they are going to take a small amount of the nuclear fuel or the nuclear weapon, and they are going to use the conventional explosive to suppress any kind of chain reactions in it. So they will ensure that the test remains subcritical, that the material never reaches the critical mass needed for a nuclear detonation. This critical mass means it is the minimum amount of nuclear material that is required to make the nuclear fission reaction to continue. So these conventional explosives are used to ensure that the nuclear reaction does not reach to the critical level. The critical mass is not reached, and this will ensure that a full-scale nuclear test is not conducted. And this subcritical test is very much allowed in CTBT. Then environmental impact, it will not be having the same impact of that of the nuclear weapon, but although it will be having a negative impact. Legal status, it is allowed under the CTBT or Comprehensive Test Ban Treaty. Now, let's see what will be the global fallout. The US nuclear test will shatter the decades of restraint, potentially triggering Russia to resume the test, China to restart the test at its Lop Nur site. This Lop Nur site is important because at this site China stores its nuclear material. India will also face internal pressure to resume the testing, followed by Pakistan, leading to renewed nuclear arm race. And for India, one thing is that the safety and security, because the neighbors China and Pakistan are going to conduct these tests. Secondly, if India also goes for the nuclear testing, a lot of resources will be used there, and those use of resources is going to hamper the developmental process of the country. So in a way, this starting of the nuclear test is going to impact India economically and socially also, along with the security. So that will be the implication of that. Such escalation could undermine the global non-proliferation framework and erode the credibility of CTBT. So again, it will have negative impact on the UN and its resolution and its treaties and the global order also. That CTBT was not able, first of all, it has not been come into force. Secondly, it has now become defunct if these tests are being restarted. Now, there are a number of treaties concerning the nuclear arms. We are going to discuss them in a brief. Now, first treaty we are having is Partial Test Ban Treaty that was signed in 1963. So, this treaty was signed by USA, UK and USSR, and later many other countries joined, and it was signed in 1963. So, its objective was to reduce the radioactive fallout and limit the environmental damage. Under this treaty, any kind of nuclear test that is conducted in atmosphere, outer space or underwater will be banned. So any underwater test, any outer space test or any test in atmosphere will not be conducted. These tests have been banned. Although underground tests are not banned under this Partial Test Ban Treaty. The next treaty that came was Comprehensive Test Ban Treaty of 1996. This treaty was under the guidance of United Nations General Assembly. It was adopted by UNGA in 1996. It seeks to ban all nuclear explosions, that means the atmosphere, underwater, outer space as well as underground. So any kind of nuclear test will be banned under this particular treaty CTBT. It applies to both military as well as peaceful nuclear explosions. It establishes a strong verification process also. This strong verification process was missing in the Partial Test Ban Treaty. So there will be an international monitoring system and on-site inspections will also be there. It has been signed by 187 countries, but yet it has not come into force. Key states like USA, China, India, Pakistan, North Korea, Israel, Iran and Egypt have not ratified this treaty. So you need to remember that India is one of the countries which have not ratified the CTBT treaty. It aims to complete a cessation of nuclear testing to promote global disarmament. The next is Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty of 1968. The objective was to prevent the spread of nuclear weapons and promote peaceful use of nuclear energy. and the violator of this NPT was Pakistan. When has been considered that Pakistan has violated the NPT, as it is being assumed, or there are speculations that North Korea has got its nuclear weapons from Pakistan itself, and even it is also trying to supply it to Iran. So that is this nuclear non-proliferation treaty. Non-proliferation treaty aim or objective is that whichever country is having the nuclear weapon, they are not going to supply them to other countries. It divides the nation into nuclear weapon states and non-nuclear weapon states. And nuclear weapon states are defined as US, UK, France, Russia and China. Now, as you see, India is having a nuclear weapon, and under NPT, India is not designated as a nuclear weapon state. That means if India signed this NPT, then whatever weapons India is having, they have to be dismantled. In this context, India has said that this differentiation of nuclear weapon state and non-nuclear weapon states should be discarded, and whichever country is possessing these nuclear weapons, they should be included in it. Secondly, this treaty should work upon disarmament. Every country which is having nuclear weapons should now disarm or dismantle their nuclear weapon. On that part, this non-proliferation treaty is silent. That's why India is not signing it. And by looking at India, Pakistan is also not signing it. Pakistan is giving this argument that when India will sign, we are also going to sign. So India is having a principled stand, and Pakistan is only having a reactionary stand. Here Pakistan, India and Israel have not signed it, and North Korea has withdrew from this NPT in 2003 itself. Next is Treaty on Prohibition of Nuclear Weapon, TPNW 2017. It is also known as Nuclear Ban Treaty. It is the first legally binding international agreement. This is important. It is a legally binding international agreement to completely prohibit nuclear weapons. It was adopted by UNGA and entered into force in 2021. It prohibits development, testing, possession and use of nuclear weapon. So see, if this nuclear testing is again resumed, that simply means that these treaties are going to be nullified. They will become ineffective, and at the end, it is going to affect the UNGA's credibility in the global order. So these statements or these actions by any country are going to affect the whole global order, whole global peace. None of the nuclear armed states have signed this treaty. Regional nuclear weapon free zone treaties have also been created. These treaties include Rarotonga Treaty, Bangkok Treaty, Pelindaba Treaty and Semi-Planstic Treaty. So for example, Bangkok Treaty is for Southeast Asia, Pelindaba Treaty is for Africa, then Rarotonga Treaty is for South Pacific region, Semi-Planstic Treaty is for Central Asia. So these are the important treaties which are related with nuclear weapon free zone. Then lastly, between USA and USSR or Russia, there have been multiple bilateral agreements in which they have tried to contain the nuclear arm race. For example, there was a SALT 1 and 2 talks. Then there was an anti-ballistic missile treaty that was signed in 1972. Then there was START 1 and START 2, Strategic Arm Reduction Treaty in 1991 and 1993. And lastly, there is a new START Treaty of 2010, which limits both sides to 1550 deployed nuclear warheads and 700 launchers. It entered into force in 2011 and extends till 2026. So these are the important treaties between USA and USSR. Now it's your turn. You have to attempt this MCQ and you have to post your answers in the comment box. And we move to the fourth topic. The fourth topic we are having is Van Sanrakshan Evam Samvardhan Adhiniyam. And the context here is that the Forest Advisory Committee, that actually is under Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change, have given recommendations regarding the violation of the Van Sanrakshan Evam Samvardhan Adhiniyam 1980 and the corresponding rules. Now topic relevance, as you know, GS paper 3, environment and ecology, conservation, environment pollution and degradation. Also environment impact assessment can be included here. Now what is the news here? The news is that the Forest Advisory Committee under Union Environment Ministry examines proposal for the diversion of forest land to the non-forest use. So any proposal that comes that a forest land has to be used for non-forest purposes then this forest advisory committee is going to review that proposal. Only after its recommendation the proposal will move ahead, and it is under Ministry of Environment, Forest. Now, FAC has recommended that there should be rationalization and uniformity in the penal provision for the violation of the Van Sanrakshan Evam Samvardhan Adhiniyam 1980, that was formerly known as Forest Conservation Act. So it is said that the present system that we are having regarding the penalty being imposed upon the use of forest land as for the non-forest purposes without going through the legal process, these penal provisions should be reviewed. They should be now updated, they should be rationalized, they should be made uniform. Because it was observed that if a certain provision is being violated, then the penalty that is being imposed is different in different cases. So there's a these are being imposed in a discretionary manner. At some area, in some areas, it is in some cases it is very punitive. A lot of penal provisions and a lot of penalties being imposed. In other cases, the penal provisions are very lenient. So we need to synchronize, we need to rationalize, we need to make it uniform. And the particular reason why there is so much ambiguity, or why there is so much diversity in the kind of penal provisions that are being imposed, is because we are not having a common set of guidelines. So this Forest Advisory Committee has recommended that we should be having a common guidelines regarding the penal provisions or penalty provisions for the violation of the act. So now the nature of the violation. The nature of the violation involves dereservation, non-forest purposes, leasing, clear felling without prior approval of the central government. So without the prior approval of the central government, either there is dereservation. Dereservation का मतलब ये होता है कि for example area has been reserved for the forest. A forest area has been now reserved. That means no activity can happen. Now if there is a dereservation without the consent of the central government, then it is known as dereservation. It is a violation of the act. Non-forest purposes like infrastructure development हो गया, mining हो गया, और for any other purposes. That means forest के अलावा किसी और purpose के लिए अगर उस land को use किया जाता है without the prior approval of the central government, then again it is a violation. Then we have leasing without the formal legal process, and also clear felling. Clear felling का मतलब होता है कि we are clearing the whole area. The plants are being cutted out in masses. So that is known as clear felling. So these are the violations that come when the forest land is these are violations for the Van Adhiniyam. Now this Forest Advisory Committee recommendation, what are the recommendation? It has recommended imposing penal compensatory afforestation in addition to the penalties already provided under the Van Adhiniyam rules of 2023. The penal compensatory afforestation means कि, for example, this amount of area has now been cleared in violation of the Van Adhiniyam. Now if this has been done, so इतना ही area आपको afforest करना है, और हो सकता है इसका double area आपको afforest करना पड़े. That is known as penal compensatory afforestation. That is physically the area that has been deforested or that has been affected need to be reforested again, and it might be double of that area. So that is known as penal compensatory afforestation, and this penal compensatory afforestation actually serves two purposes. The first purpose is कि जितना area हमने खोया है उतना ही area हमने पा लिया, एंड जब ये ट्वाइस होता है तो ट्वाइस का मतलब ये है कि फर्दर अगर कोई ऐसा ही काम करेगा तो देयर विल बी डिटरेंस फॉर दैट, कि उसको डबल एरिया को दोबारा से रीफॉरेस्ट करना होगा. सो दैट इज पीनल कंपनसेटरी एफॉरेस्टेशन. नाउ दिस पीनल कंपनसेटरी एफॉरेस्टेशन का कॉन्सेप्ट क्या है? इट एम्स टू रिस्टोर द फॉरेस्ट डिग्रेडेड ड्यू टू इलीगल और अनऑथराइज्ड यूज. अर्लियर इट वाज अप्लाइड केस बाय केसेस, स्पेशली बिफोर मॉनेटरी पेनल्टी नॉर्म्स वर इंट्रोड्यूस्ड. FAC earlier found it appropriate to impose penal CA twice the area used in violation when no other penalty existed. So FAC ये करता था, यानी Forest Advisory Committee ये impose करता था penal compensatory afforestation. Now, one new thing has come out. The new thing is penal net present value. That has been now introduced, and it has been introduced through the Supreme Court's direction of 2017. What does this mean? It means कि wherever there is a forest, there are trees, but there is biodiversity also. There are ecological services that this forest is providing. It is also helping in soil conservation. It is also providing us fresh air. It is also providing us medicinal values. It is also providing livelihood to the local people. So whenever a forest is being cleared, all of them are affected. And we have, in this net present value, we are calculating what is the amount, what is the monetary value of these ecological services. These ecological services involve soil conservation, air purification, carbon sequestration, then we can have livelihood, biodiversity. So all of these are being affected. So while calculating the net present value, we are going to calculate what is the cost of these. And after calculating all of them, the net present asset value penalty will be imposed. So the net present value represents the monetary value of the ecosystem services provided by the forest. Under the new rules, a penal NPV up to 5 times. For example, a 10-acre land has been cleared, and for this 10-acre land, 5 crore rupees, 5 crore per acre is the ecological services that it is providing. So if this 10-acre land is cleared illegally, then the particular entity, organization, whoever is responsible, has to pay rupees 250 crore as the net present value. How 250 crore? 5 crore is the value, and 5 crore को कर देंगे 5 times, because the penal NPV is 5 times. So 1 acre पे 25 crores it has to pay as penalty, and for 10 acres it will be 250 crores. So that amount of penalty will be imposed, and that will act as a deterrence. Secondly, this 250 crore can be used for afforestation, biodiversity and conservation of the forest. Now need for rationalization क्यों है? Because introduction of penal NPV, the FAC emphasized the need to harmonize its application with penal CA. Penal means penal CA का मतलब compensatory afforestation. Consistency in penalty is required. Secondly, proportionality in enforcement across the states is required. In some states, only penal CA is being imposed, or this penal NPV is very less. So it needs that in every state, all these penalties should be equal. They should be equitable. The committee stressed that both measures should not overlap or lead to disappropriate punishment. Because if the punishment is disappropriate, it is also going to discourage the investment there. Then second is reporting and accounting. On that, it has said the state government should confirm a violation, and if a violation has happened, it must send a detailed report to the regional office of the ministry headquarters, which will include the details of the officials responsible for allowing the violation and action taken against them. Then committee on penal CA, it says a special committee including officers from the regional offices, ministry representatives was constituted to examine the issue. There has been a committee on penal CA also, which submitted its report in November 2024. Now in the present report, this FAC or Forest Conservation Authority has reviewed this particular penal CA report also, and has also included the NPV or penal net forest value, net present value. It has both has been included, and the present report has been given. Now the key observations were: the Forest Advisory Committee observed penal CA was inconsistently applied after monetary penalties were introduced. It recommended that future violations be addressed within a uniform penal provision combining penal CA and NPV. So both have to be used. The penal compensatory afforestation and the penal net present value has to be used for the penal provisions or for the punishment. Overall objective is to create a standardized framework for dealing with the forest law violation to ensure that environment restoration and accountability go in hand. ऐसा ना हो कि ओवर अकाउंटेबिलिटी हो जाए, या ऐसा ना हो कि फॉरेस्ट रेस्टोरेशन इज बीइंग ओवरलुक्ड. तो दोनों को ही हमें बैलेंस करना है to prevent arbitrary or even uneven penalties for the similar offences under the one Adhiniyam. Now it's your turn. You have to attempt the MCQ and you have to post your answers in the comment box. Now the last topic under decoded is the universal basic income. The backdrop is that in India we are having a lot of welfare schemes which are fragmented, which are inefficient, which have the element of exclusion, and which have a complex eligibility criteria. In this context, universal basic income can be a solution. So in this context, we are going to discuss the particular topic. The relevance is GS paper 2 as well as GS paper 3. GS paper 2, welfare schemes for vulnerable sections of the population by center, state and performance of these schemes. Now, what is the news? The news is that redrawing the welfare architecture, placing universal basic income at the center. India is facing a lot of issues like wealth inequality, job losses from automation, climate-driven displacement. In this, the financial and the social security is one of the concerns for the country. The current welfare schemes are fragmented, inefficient and exclusionary. A lot of issues are pertaining with the schemes. For example, the mistargeting is there. The ghost beneficiary problem has been there. There have been a lot of leakages also. In this scenario, universal basic income, once considered utopian, has become an urgent policy need. So let's see that. First of all, India's inequality and economic reality. The World Inequality Gini states India's inequality India stands at 75 in the recent 2023 report. The top 1% holds 40% of the wealth in the country and top 10% controls 77% of the wealth. So more or less the wealth is concentrated in the top 10%. India is at the 126th position in the World Happiness Index for the 2023-24. And our growth rate or GDP growth rate is one of the highest in the world, or it is the highest in the world, the growth at that rate that we are having. That simply means that the growth rate or GDP does not reflect the actual happiness because there is inequality in the country. And in terms of this happiness index, we are far behind Pakistan, we are far behind Nepal as well as Bhutan. The GDP centric policies hide rising job insecurity and mental stress. Next is, what is universal basic income? The universal basic income simply means that at periodic level, a certain amount will be transferred to the account of every citizen of the country. That means the government or the state is going to provide a basic monetary value or monetary funds to every person or every citizen of the country. Its objective is to ensure a basic income floor for all, strengthen the social contract between the state and the citizens. The core principle is very simple कि क्यों हमें basic income करनी है, the basic universal income हमें क्यों चाहिए? Because first of all it will ensure dignity. Whenever a welfare scheme is being provided, the financial state of that person is being asked from it. So whoever is taking ration is being attributed as economically backward. So there is a question of dignity here. When the universal basic income will be provided to all, it simply means that the differentiation who is a poor, who is a rich will not be there. So it will try to ensure the dignity of every citizen of the country. Second is autonomy. Whenever we are providing ration or any other health or any other benefit, there are certain conditionalities that are attached to it. A person may not want to eat wheat, but still he is being provided with wheat. So providing him the money will help him in making choices. If he wants to eat protein rich diet, if he wants to eat rice, or he wants to eat the cereals or any other thing, then that will be up to him only. So he will be provided with autonomy, he will be provided with the choice. Lastly, simplicity. Because we have to transfer the funds to everyone, so mistargeting, leakages, these issues will not be there. Directly the money will be transferred to the bank accounts. So it is very, very simple. So the other problems that come here, that is the leakages, the expenses, the inefficiencies, those things will be avoided. What are the strengths of the UBI? Universality, I have already discussed. Based upon citizen, non-employment or poverty status. Then administrative simplicity. It will avoid the complexities of targeted schemes because targeting के लिए भी आपको डेटा लेना पड़ेगा, आपको लोगों को बुलाना पड़ेगा, आपको कार्ड्स इशू करने होंगे. इसके अंदर कोई कार्ड इशू नहीं करना, डायरेक्टली ट्रांसफर होगा एवरी मंथ. रिमूव द स्टिग्मा, that treats income support as right, not charity. अब ये right होगा ना कि charity रहेगा. Then resilience, it will provide safety against the automatic shocks like climate crisis या job अगर चला गया तो, या जैसे economic stress अभी आया है country पे, तो in those cases also it will provide resilience to the country because जो demand है that will be there. Every person is going to have a certain amount with him. Now, why India needs this UBI? Because India's current welfare measures face the problem of duplication, leakages and exclusion. डुप्लीकेशन है, एक ही पर्सन के 4 कार्ड बने हुए हैं, किसी पर्सन का बिहार में भी है, दिल्ली के अंदर भी है, किसी पर्सन का दिल्ली के अंदर है, मध्य प्रदेश के अंदर भी है. सो दीज थिंग्स आर हैपनिंग. यूबीआई कैन स्ट्रीमलाइन द वेलफेयर डिलीवरी बिकॉज अब क्या है, डिजिटल प्लेटफॉर्म को यूज किया जा सकता है, आधार डीबीटी को यूज किया जा सकता है. मोरल एंड इकोनॉमिक रैशनल, addresses inequality, enhances dignity and promotes the demand during the economic shocks. Then UBI in the future of the work, because आने वाले time में we are going to see automation is going to come and it is going to affect the jobs of the people, income wise भी और job security wise भी. हो सकता है कुछ लोगों की income decrease कर दी जाए या reduce कर दी जाए because machines will be able to do the work and the people are not going to have the choices. Secondly, it may also happen that they may lose the jobs also. So in that case, if we are having a income support for every citizen, तो उसका जो shock है that will be less, that can be absorbed easily. So up to 800 million jobs could be lost globally by 2030. In that context, UBI becomes pertinent. India's semi-skilled workers are especially vulnerable in that case. Then UBI can buffer the economic transition and support the reskilling. Because when you are having certain amount of income coming into your account, then you can focus on skilling part also. You can focus on capacity building part also. अगर income ही नहीं है तो then you have to search for the job. So in that case, it is going to provide a buffer to the citizens also. Then transforming the citizen-state relationship. Current welfare politics is transactional and populist, based upon short-term freebies. UBI delinks welfare from the political patronage. Because होता क्या है कि welfare किसके लिए रहता है? Welfare is basically to woo the voters. A certain section of voters are being wooed. So free electricity देना या free water supply देना या freebies देना, वो सारा these all schemes are actually targeting the people at the lower economic levels so that they vote for them. But these particular schemes are very, very uneconomical. They put a lot of stress on the state exchequer. So when we are having a UBI, all these schemes will be waived off. And the focus of the government will then be on governance, will be on infrastructure development, will be on service delivery. So the populist political patronage can be waived off if we are having a UBI kind of thing. It will promote the right-based citizenship because voters are going to demand for better governance instead of subsidies. Now voters are demanding for the subsidies. Voters are demanding for the farm loan waivers. Loan waivers demand करते हैं. So these things are actually affecting our democracy also, because those who are able or promising these things are getting into power, and the policies are in that manner only, which actually affect the overall growth of the country. It increases accountability and reduces the vote bank politics. So that is the political implication of UBI. Then concerns about inflation, because there are concerns when everyone is going to have money, then they are going to spend more and inflation will be more in the country. Evidences have shown that UBI does not trigger inflation as seen in the existing models, because at certain places these have been implemented. For example, in Finland, the UBI has been implemented. Inflation arises from supply shortage, not people taking extra spending power. So inflation का main कारण क्या है? It is a shortage in the supply. The demand side can easily be covered by the supply side, because when people start demanding more, the processes become efficient and the cost starts declining. If properly funding, UBI can stabilize the demand during the downturns. Then evidence from the UBI experiment, for example, Seva in Madhya Pradesh was a pilot project there. It focused on improving the nutrition, schooling and the earning. Abroad, if you talk about Finland, Kenya and Iran have shown better mental health and food security when UBI is in place. No evidence is there where UBI reduces the willingness to work, because there are concerns that कि हो सकता है कि inflation बढ़ जाए, हो सकता है कि लोग काम करना बंद कर दें because they are already getting an income. So there are no evidences that people will not work. In case those who want to work, those who have ambitions are going to improve themselves. So it will be a support system rather than having negative impact on the society. Then what are the limitations and challenges? First of all, the fiscal cost, because India is having a large population, more than 140 billion population is there. So the amount can go up to 5% of the GDP. फंडिंग ऑप्शन क्या है? टैक्स हाइक हो सकता है, सब्सिडी कट रहेगा या बोरोइंग्स रहेंगी. रिस्क, यूनिवर्सल इंक्लूजन में बेनिफिट रिच टू डायल्यूटिंग द रिच डिस्ट्रीब्यूशन. तो हो सकता है इनइक्वालिटी को कम करने के बजाय वो उसको मेंटेन रखे, बिकॉज रिच आर ऑल्सो गोइंग टू गेट द बेनिफिट ऑफ यूबीआई. देन टेक्नोलॉजिकल बैरियर्स भी हैं, बिकॉज देयर इज लैक ऑफ डिजिटल एक्सेस इन द रिमोट एरियाज, इन द रूरल एरियाज. Literacy is also a challenge because there is a literacy gap between the urban and the rural areas. The next is the way forward, how we can do this. First of all, there should be a phased implementation. Start with women, elderly, disabled and low income groups, because we can identify them easily. The age can be identified, the women can be identified based upon the gender. Then complementary role they should play. They should supplement the existing welfare schemes like public distribution and मनरेगा, so that एकदम से shock ना लगे. They should not replace them immediately, but it should be gradual replacement. Investment in inclusion, invest grow in digital and banking access, which should be provided in every part of the country. Then what is the broader vision? UBI is not a magic cure, but can be a foundation for dignity and opportunity. It recognizes the unpaid care work, especially by the women. It encourages modern welfare state where economic rights are universal. And the question is not longer, अब question ये नहीं है कि can we afford it or not, but the question is can we afford mass insecurity? So that is the question we are asking in the context of UBI. क्या हम लोग mass insecurity को afford कर पाएंगे, because it is going to lead to demographic curse that we are having. So in this context, UBI becomes important for us. Now, based upon the discussion, you are in a position to attempt this mains question. You try to write an answer. If you want to get it checked, you can bring it to us. So with this, we conclude for the day. Thank you very much.